On April 6, 1945, America dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, they dropped another on Nagasaki. The number of casualties is unknown because even now people suffer with health problems due to the radioactive aftermath of the bombs. Interestingly though, the imagery of the bomb has continued to surface over and over again in Japan's art, and especially in cinema. From the literal films like Children of Hiroshima to the more metaphorical like Akira and Gojira, the bomb seems to be a constant source of narrative trauma that resonates on screen even now. Recently I've been doing a lot of research about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the cinema that depicts it for my university dissertation, and out of all the films I've watched and analysed so far, none feel as personal, emotional and traumatic as the one I want to discuss today. Hi, my name's Rob and welcome to my channel where we discuss the wonders of East Asian cinema. Today, Barefoot Gen. In Freud's famous essay Remembering, Repeating and Working Through, he argues that trauma can be overcome if one remembers the source of the trauma and works through the memory. Essentially, we can argue that the sheer volume of films dealing with Hiroshima and Nagasaki is due to the trauma it caused, and therefore they are in essence a form of coping with said trauma, a way to work through the memories of such an event. With Children of Hiroshima, it's a way for Shindo to work through his survivor's guilt of not being in Hiroshima at the time of the bombing. For the Hiroshima film, it feels like a film rooted in Japan's anger towards the bomb and deals with more of a societal trauma. Barefoot Gen though is all about Kenji Nakazawa and what he saw when he was a child, and it is one of the most hard-hitting depictions of the bomb I've ever seen. Nakazawa survived Hiroshima and the bombing of it as a small child, and in adulthood he would go on to create stories based on his experiences with what he saw. In 1966, when his mother passed away, the only surviving member of his family at that point, Nakazawa would begin to revisit his memories and slowly he would turn them into manga. First he wrote Struck by Black Rain, a fictional story of survivors involved with the post-war black market. He was essentially dipping his toes into the narrative of the war, testing if he truly had the emotional strength to revisit what he had saw, and ultimately he did, and his follow-up, appropriately named I Saw It, told the real-life story of his experiences with the bomb. This was only a short piece though, but arguably the building block towards Barefoot Gen. By working through his memories, he was ready to adapt them into a narrative that reflected the trauma of World War II as a whole, through a semi-autobiographical character that seemed to capture the suffering in a childlike gaze. Today I want to talk about the first film adaptation of it though from 1983, and hopefully I can encourage a few of you to watch it as well. The film follows a protagonist, Jen, a young boy full of optimism despite the ongoing war. He has a younger brother, Shinji, a sister, Iko, and his father and mother. The family has no food and the town is struggling for food overall. Nakazawa doesn't portray Hiroshima as a place that is thriving while supporting the war. It's a place where women and children are suffering and starving. This is where the work really shines because it's not just a piece about tragedy, but a piece about the Japanese spirit. The film feels like a Studio Ghibli style of youthful melodrama, and it sets you up to feel as though the film is going to be a gentle experience of what Hiroshima was, but soon you realise Hiroshima can never be presented as anything else than horrific, and the film does just that. When the bomb finally hits in the film, the false sense of safety you feel experiencing the story through the view of a child disappears, and the film depicts the death, pain and destruction in a scary, realistic way. You witness children and babies burnt to death and it feels even heavier because you know it's from the view of a child, and this is exactly what Nakazawa experienced himself. You're literally watching a man's self-therapy presented through film as he painfully drew every panel of his memories to create the manga that became this film. What makes a film like this so important is that these voices that were initially not allowed to even mention the bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki as America occupied Japan following the war and censored all material about the bomb and any mention of human suffering. Only the destruction of the buildings was allowed to be shown, everything else was banned. When the occupation ended, Japan was finally able to begin mourning what had happened, and we slowly begin to see films like Barefoot Gen. Even now though, America has dominated the narrative of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, generating the myth that it was a necessary tactic to end the war. Almost every historian has struggled to find a justified reason for why America dropped the bomb, and the film captures that feeling of a nation that feels like they were never going to get the answers for what happened. In Lindsay Cameron's essay, Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the World 60 Years Later, they begin to conclude how less and less people are attending the museums in Hiroshima and almost none at all attend the one in Nagasaki, concluding that when the survivors pass away, what will really remain of the history? And we can see this in the cinema of Japan that has reflected the events, as little of them have ever really received good distribution, even now. Barefoot Gen is pretty hard to find, and that's pretty sad considering how important it is. You don't come across films like this very often that truly depict a real life suffering through the eyes of someone who experienced it. Which is why I wanted to make this video today, to encourage people to go and watch these films, and if you're going to watch any, I highly recommend starting with Barefoot Gen. Thank you for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, it really helps, and definitely think about checking out some of the links below to support the channel in any way, follow me on other mediums, or donating to my coffee fund below. Always appreciate everything guys, and I'll see you guys next time.